Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 48th part of What If Deku Can't Stop Adopting Kids. Hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 257, Workout. Eri took a deep breath as she held an apple core in her hand. She closed her eyes and focused on herself. Deep inside her, she felt power erupt. Attempting to burst out of her like a flood, she did everything she could to restrain it. Focus it. Turn it from a hurricane to a breeze. The power focused into her horn and then spread through her skin, cascading around her. And then she shut it down, closing off the flow of power, like a dam blocking a river. The power vanished, and Eri opened her eyes. And in her hands was a half-eaten apple. Eri released the breath she was holding. So close, yet so far. She'd take a few minutes to relax, then try again. She would get this right. Very, very soon. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX stood on top of the house. "Ready," Kyosei said in his head. Fu took off his shirt, and black wings grew out of his back. Then he jumped forward. Fu's wings caught onto the air and allowed him to slowly glide down towards the ground. "All right. Everything's good so far," Fu thought. The wings had been a pain in the butt for Fu up until now. First of all, Fu would never be able to fly. It took him a while to figure that out, but just growing wings did not allow one to fly, contrary to what his siblings and TV would lead him to believe. Birds and other flying things were made to fly. Their weight, body structure, and everything about them had evolved in order to be made to fly. And Fu's body was not. Yes, Hawks could fly with his wings, and both Sheena and Kiba could grow wings. But those wings were made of lies. Those were quirks, specificity made to allow the user to fly, or in Sheena's case, just her cheating reality. Hawks fly via telekinesis. He can mentally control his wings and feathers and uses that to allow himself to fly. Sheena literally alters reality in order to fly. And Kiba's wings physically exuded invisible energy, allowing her to fly. Fu had none of that. So the best he could do was glide. And even that was an absolute pain. Because as it turns out, aerodynamics was hard. Most of his attempts ended in him gliding in circles, gliding uncontrollably in one or random directions. Or the glider just not working, and causing Fu to splat against the ground. "Alright, now I just need to learn how to glide better, and it'll almost be like I'm flying," Fu thought. And then a strong wind blew, causing Fu to fly backward, and splattered into the house. Fu sighed. Back to the drawing board. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Currently, Kiba was doing push-ups in the training room. Normally this would be no problem, but with her new equipment that made it quite a bit harder. Her normal clothes were made to restrict her strength, but these ones were made to test it. Special weighted clothes that most normal people, and even pro heroes, couldn't so much as lift, let alone wear. These clothes made moving an exercise for Kiba, so basic push-ups were actually a challenge. Oof. Kiba groaned as she finished one last push-up, before sitting down and taking a small break. Hinata, who had been standing next to her the entire time, kneeled down and gave her a bottle of blood. "Thank you, Hinata," Kiba said, before taking a long sip. "Watching you exercise is thanks enough, Lady Kiba," Hinata said cheerfully. Kiba finished drinking and handed the bottle back to Hinata, who ran off to go refill it. "Alright, back to work." With that, Kiba went back to her push-ups. Sanson was in the forest, surrounded by Beowulfs. Rah! The Beowulfs charged at her, claws and teeth bared. The first one attempted to bite her, but Sanson turned into a puddle and ducked under it, causing the monster to accidentally charge into another Beowulf. Another Beowulf attempted to strike down at Sanson with its claw, but she backed up to avoid it. The Beowulfs tried to pounce on her, but she moved in between their legs to avoid them. Recent events had reminded Sanson that she was not immune to attacks. She could be attacked, and she could die from certain attacks. Hence she decided she needed to learn how to dodge. And so she'd spend the rest of the evening dodging these Beowulfs. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Thwip! Webs smacked into targets that had been set up outside. Shiroku stood a good distance away and looked at the targets. Only one bull's eye. Shiroku pouted. How is Fuku so good at this? Webs were the most important part of Shiroku's arsenal. She wasn't the fastest, nor was she the strongest. But her webs were a useful tool, unique to her. Of course, she would still keep up her strength and speed training, but webs would be her focus. Meaning she'd been spending a lot of time getting her aim right. Blaff! Yami vomited grim goop all over the floor. As he was vomiting it up, the grim was already taking shape, and a few seconds after it was spat out, the Beowulf had already formed. Ugh! Yami groaned. He'd been making grim for quite a while. And while there wasn't a direct drawback to him making grim, he was still vomiting stuff, which meant if he spat out good for long enough, he couldn't breathe. But he had to keep going. His inarguably biggest weakness was how long it took him to make grim on the spot. Sure, he could make smaller grim pretty quickly, but those were only so useful. If he could master quick spawning, then his direct combat ability would go up dramatically. There was no improvement without suffering after all. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr been made for him. You can do it, Kai. Kai shouted from on top of his head. Thanks big sis. Kai said. His mouth filled with dumbbells, and his head filled with motivation. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Whoosh! A fireball slammed into a target, with two dummies next to it. The fireball exploded on contact and knocked down the target. Netsu, who was standing not too far away, looked at the result. The target was mostly destroyed, but the two dummies that had been next to it had some minor burns on them. Darn it! Netsu sighed. He was improving. Before, anything that got close to his attacks was likely to get serious injuries. But still, he had to do better. Couldn't have a hero going around burning the people he was trying to save. Slam! In the forest, Ken in his heat blast form rocketed into the earth, hard enough to bury the upper half of his body. Ow, Ken grunted. That was another failed attempt to fly using heat blast. Sure, Stinkfly could fly really easily, but what if he needed to fly and he wasn't heat blast? Or what if he needed to fly and set things on fire? And so he decided to learn how to fly with heat blast. Ugh! Ken groaned as he pulled himself out of the ground. Netsu was right, this is way harder than it looks. Nara stood in front of a dummy, in her diamond head form. Well, here goes nothing. She placed her hand on the dummy's face, and then crystals started coming out and covering the dummy's body. Slowly the crystal spread over its entire body until it was completely trapped in the crystal. Crack, crack! Nara broke off her hand from the dummy, leaving it trapped. Yes! It worked! Yet another special move was attained. It would take a bit more optimizing, but Nara was confident this would be useful. Eventually. Nee stood still, holding her breath as she engaged in a very important task. Juggling. Now that might not have sounded very important, but for her, it was important training. By juggling a ball with her vectors, it helped improve her control over them. Because her biggest problem was controlling her vectors. Her other had already done most of the legwork when it came to strengthening their body and quirk. However, all the dexterity and control she had did not carry over to knees. Meaning when she first tried to use her quirk, her vectors would often move around a bit more wildly than she would like, which could cause problems if she wanted to use them in combat. Currently, Knees was juggling a ball between her 4 vectors slowly. Alright, let's try a bit faster. Knees thought to herself. She increased the speed of her juggling a bit. And everything was fine. A couple minutes later, she decided to go a bit faster. This continued for about 20 minutes. Slowly increasing the speed every 3 or so minutes until... Bam! One of her vectors missed the ball, and it slammed into her wall. Knee sighed and looked at the ball sadly. I didn't even go that fast. It was a mystery to her how her other them operated so quickly and precisely. And would remain a mystery, because she couldn't communicate with her. She took a deep breath. It's okay, I can just keep trying, or I could watch some anime no. Bad Knees. Bad. Training first, then anime. Maybe treat myself to a nice ice cream. Yeah. That sounds good. Training. Then anime and ice cream. Let's go. With that, Knees picked up the ball with her vector and started juggling again. Bang, bang. Curses. Missed again. AKA swore. AKA was currently in the training room, holding a rifle and shooting at some targets. This rifle wasn't a normal rifle. It was designed to shoot special darts that would inject parts of herself into the target. Of course, Izuku had some reservations about giving children guns, but he quickly realized that quirks were far more dangerous than almost any gun out there, and so he relented. AKA, lunch is ready. Kyoko said, popping into the training room to tell her that. I will eat. When this is the target. Is annihilated. AKA shouted as she reloaded her gun. Kyoko rolled her eyes. I'll just leave her food in the fridge. Alice dear, lunch is ready, Chol said as she entered her daughter's room, finding her sitting at her desk, hunched over her notebook. Just a second mom, Alice said as she continued writing in her notebook. Chol walked up to Alice and looked at what she was writing. She was just writing her name, over and over and over again. Very quickly and sloppily. Speed writing again? Chol asked. Yup. If I'm gonna be useful, I need to learn how to write fast. Alice said cheerfully, as she turned the page and started writing again. Chol smiled a bit and rubbed her daughter's hair. What an earnest girl I've raised. Yaba, G, and Inu were all running around the track in the backyard. All of them moving in perfect sync. None of you need a break, huh? Yaba asked her sisters. Do you? G asked in return. Not at all. Jabba smirked. Let's go faster. And change formation. Yes, sir. G and Inu shouted. Lu took a deep breath and cocked his fist back. Currently, Lu was in the lab, in one of the test chambers, staring down a block of steel. Lu was covered in his red aura from Chaos Boost. But that wasn't what he was gonna use to strike. Instead, he was gonna use a new special move. Lu could not hold on to too much chaos energy at once, but what if he didn't have to hold on to it? What if Lu could summon the energy, and release it instantaneously? Not giving it any time to harm his body. If he could master this, then he could greatly increase the power of his attacks. Emphasis on the word, if. Ha! Le swung his fist forward. Ding! And it collided with the steel, doing no damage. And hurting Lee's hand. Le didn't even have time to register the pain, before the second part of his failed attack made everything so much worse. Kaboom! Lee's fist exploded, destroying the steel black, but sending Le flying back, hitting the wall of the test chamber and knocking him unconscious. As well as leaving Le with a burned and broken hand. This was gonna be a long and very painful road. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX in his hand. He sat down and decided to finally address something. Himiko, I can sense you. Oh, whoa. Himiko groaned as she climbed out from under a table behind him, with a disappointed look on her face. How? I did what you said and made sure my footsteps were quiet. True, your footsteps were notably harder to hear. If I were slightly less experienced, even with my hearing, I might have chalked the odd sound I heard to background noise. Giza admitted. But you far from mastered the technique. But that wasn't your real problem. Your real was your excitement. I could feel it from the moment you started tailing me. Ha? You can feel other people's emotions? No fair. Himiko pouted, as she sat next to Giza. Everyone can, with enough training. And even without training, some people can still detect things like malicious internet. Giza explained. You must learn to suppress your aura and emotions. Master your movement techniques. And learn how to fully analyze and utilize your environment. Then you will be able to move on to even more advanced techniques. I will, sensei. Himiko said with a crazed smile. I'll be the best ninja in the world. With your potential, I don't doubt it. Giza thought to himself, as he started eating his ramen. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Shiruku encouraged. Shiruku was currently outside, holding a stopwatch, in order to help out Kano, who was flying in front of her, with weights tied to her feet. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr to keep flapping her wings. Just a few more seconds, so close, done. Shiruku shouted as the clock reached 10 minutes. Slam! Immediately Kano stopped, and both she and the weight fell onto the floor. Ugh! Kano groaned, and Shiruku immediately went over to help her up, holding her up with her shoulder. That was great, Kano. Let's go get you some more negative. You've earned it, Shiruka said. Oh Shiruku, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. Kano smiled, as the two left the training room. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX I've noticed you don't really like to use your quirk much during training, Kiba told him. Well, today's your lucky day. Today, I'll allow you to use your quirk against me. The great Lady Kiba. Odo stopped what he was doing and raised an eyebrow at her. Kiba's mood immediately soured and she pouted. What? Are you saying I can't take it? I'll have you know I have the greatest endurance of anyone here. Plus my great regeneration will allow me to dash. Go away. It was a whisper, just a slight whisper. Something that would normally not even be heard over Kiba's talking. Boom, boom. But it was enough to create a strong sonic wave in front of him that sent Kiba flying into the wall. Ha! Kiba shrugged. Her dress was torn a bit, but ultimately she was fine. So it seems like the caretaker wasn't exaggerating. Still, you're going to need more than that to dash. Enough. Kaboom! This time Odo spoke in a slightly louder whisper, just below what one would call a normal speaking voice, but even still the sonic wave it emitted smacked into Kiba even harder, pinning her against the wall and destroying some of her clothes. Huh, I actually felt that one, Kiba said, shaking off the hit. But are we done with the weak sucker punches now? I want to see your real power. Oto's eyes widened as he saw Kiba, seemingly unfazed by that attack. Back when he was training the quirk breeders, no one, not even their best trainers, got off unharmed from his whispers. That much would normally hospitalize people. How are you still standing? This time Oto spoke in a normal speaking voice, and the sonic wave burst from his mouth, completely encompassing the side of the room he was facing. Kiba barely had time to bring up her arms and block, before the shockwave slammed into, sending her flying back into the wall again. This one was different from the other ones. This one hurt. The force made Kiba's bones shiver, and tore cuts into her flesh, while simultaneously blowing out her eardrums, causing blood to leak out of her ears. The entire room shook from the force of the attack like an earthquake had gone off. Fortunately, it was over very quickly, and Kiba was freed from the pressure of the attack. Her body immediately started to heal whatever injury she had. Okay, that was a lot. Kiba groaned as she tried very hard not to acknowledge the pain or the fact that she was now naked due to the last attack completely destroying her clothes. But that wasn't your best, was it? Come on. Give it to me. Scream. Oto was in disbelief. This was impossible. No one could withstand him talking so easily. It just couldn't happen. And yet, Kiba stood in front of him, unharmed. Sure, she'd taken some damage, but it had been very minor considering the weight of the attack she just took, and her quirk healed it in seconds. And now she wants more? He seriously wouldn't have believed it, had it not just happened. Could she take his max power? He'd only ever used it once by accident, and never again because it destroyed the facility he was in, as well as the land around it. He'd thought that anyone taking that would be utterly impossible, but Kiba had already done the impossible, right in front of him. Oto coughed a bit, clearing his throat. This was going to hurt his throat quite a bit, but he had to know if she could take it. Go! Krakum! XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX The entire house started to shake intensely, before suddenly stopping. Either that was a very abrupt earthquake, the lab just did something they shouldn't have, or the kids are taking a sparring match too far, Izuku said to himself with a sigh. I have a feeling I know the answer. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX running down her entire body. Her healing quirk was already on healing the patches of skin that had been torn off, the organs that got ruptured, and the bones that were snapped, as well as healing her ears. Okay, that was gonna need a second. Kiba groaned. Maybe lay down for a second. She survived, she's not okay, but she's not gonna die. Odo thought he was so shocked he didn't even pay any mind to how much his throat hurt. On that day, Odo felt like the world around him crumbled. He wasn't sure how to feel about it. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX target, hitting close to the bullseye, but not quite hitting it. This is harder than it looks, Seikyo commented. Holding a bow she made out of negative energy. Why yeah, Fuku said. She'd been dragged along to help Seikyo practice. Thankfully Seikyo had enough tact to let her get her hoodie before they started. But you're really good at it. Just a bit more practice and you'll be able to hit bullseyes easily. I hope you're right, Seikyo said. By the way, what made you want to pick up archery, if you don't mind telling me, Fuku asked nervously. I don't mind. I was watching some anime, and realized I lacked something. Seikyo explained. Weapons. Weapons can help me out a lot. They can help me fight at close range, and with a bow, I found that focusing dark energy into a small arrow not only can help pierce through opponents easier, but it also increases its power. And it can do this. Boom! Suddenly the arrow exploded, destroying the target and causing Fuku to jump back. Ah! Fuku shouted in fear, her face turning white under her hood. Warn me before you do that. Just because you're used to explosions doesn't mean everyone else is. Sorry. Seikyo apologized. And now please excuse me. Fuku blushed under her hood. I need to go, pass gas. Chapter 258, Ship It. Gentle, do you really think this is a good idea? La Brava asked as she and Gentle walked the streets while disguised in trench coats. It will be fine, La Brava. Gentle reassured her. Besides, we can't stay cooped up in that ship forever. While I understand the importance of hiding, doing it forever will make life near meaningless. And you deserve better. Oh, Gentle. La Brave brushed, a smile crawling up her face. You charmer. So where are we going first? First I was thinking of having some breakfast, and then going to a theater. Gentle said as he rubbed his mustache. I know a place that serves only the most delicious tea. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX don't. You need to move on. I'm already dead. I won't just give up on you. I made a promise. That we'd grow old together. I won't go back on that. Sniff sniff. La Brava and Gentle sat in the movie theater, both of them tearing up at the movie. So beautiful, La Brava whispered through her tears. Never give up, young man. Gentle sniffled. Never give up. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX up a book. The two were now in a large bookstore, looking for books to read together. Excellent. Gentle found a nearby, cozy reading area and sat down. Come. La Brava quickly ran to him and sat on his lap. Opening the book, the two of them started reading. A few minutes later, a man walked past and smiled at them. So good to see a father reading with his daughter. And immediately, La Brava was brought out of the book, and her mood turned from joyful to enraged, as a scowl formed on her face. Excuse me. I'm short, damn it. I'm not a child. Do children have these? La Brava opened her coat to reveal her body, which had an adult figure despite her size, shocking the man. Oh. I am so sorry. The man stammered. You better me. Why does every time someone sees a short person, they assume it's a kid? La Brava ranted. Excuse me for being small. I apologize, she dislikes being mistaken for a child. Gentle explained. It's a bit of a sore spot for her. Right, no. I should have minded my business. The man said, before promptly leaving. I'm so sorry. Oof. The nerve of people. La Brava pouted. Perhaps we should read somewhere less public. Gentle said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX two of them had gone to a nearby nature park and sat up against a tree. Well then, shall we continue? Gentle asked. La Brava didn't respond. It looked like she had something to say, but didn't know if she wanted to say it. La Brava, what's wrong? Gentle asked, giving his companion a worried look. Do you think Midoriya could change my appearance? La Brava asked as she looked down at herself. Like making me taller. La Brava, if that is what you wish, you may do so. But know that I love you, regardless of what you look like. Gentle reassured her. I know, La Brava said, giving him a small smile, before frowning again. But darn it, I hate when people think I'm a child. Because it always ends with people calling you a pedo. To be fair, that didn't even happen this time. Gentle pointed out. Thankfully. But I have a feeling this won't stop happening if we don't do something about it. La Brava argued. And? La Brava once again looked down at herself. I know you said you love me no matter what, but maybe if I was prettier you could love me just a bit more. Gentle sighed, and shook his head, before kissing La Brava on the forehead. Dear La Brava, the reason I adore you has nothing to do with your looks. You stayed by my side when no one else would. We have a bond that transcends anything physical. La Brava blushed intensely. Oh, Gentle. The. Gentle scowled and pulled out his phone, before answering it. My apologies, but I was having a rather touching moment. I'm sure you were, Kaza said, sounding about as annoyed as Gentle. But you need to get back to the ship. You're late. Gentle sighed. Very well. We will be back shortly. And with that, Kaza hung up. It appears our alone time is up. Gentle said sadly. Let us go, La Brava. Yeah, we better not keep them waiting, La Brava said, still blushing up a storm. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. There they found the cloud splitter parked behind it, out of sight. Gentle and La Brava walked up to one of the bridges that were connected to the ship, and they saw Kaza and the rest of the sky pirates, except Roro, who were waiting for her. "Were you two screwing? Is that why you took so long?" Yodo asked, looking half annoyed and half curious. "Because if so, good on you, La Brava. As a fellow short girl, I fully support you. Who cares, just get on the ship." Kaza shouted at them. "Why are you so angry? We just got here." La Brava defended. Kaza scowled. "Because the longer we stay docked, the better chance that we'll be." "Not so fast." "Damn it!" Kaza swore. Everyone looked behind Gentle and La Brava and saw a cloaked woman standing there. "Finally, I've found you," said the woman, and all of them could see a smirk from under her clothes. La Brava's eyes widened. That voice. The horrible villains that corrupted my dear cousin. The woman shouted, as suddenly she started to glow with pink energy from under her cloak. "Ah, shit." Kaza cursed. "Is this who I think it is?" Shift asked, taking out his sword. "Oh, we are so fucked." Ruff said. "La Brava, is this her?" Gentle asked his lover. La Brava nodded. "It's her. My cousin. #1 hero of France. Let us blossom. Let us sing the song of love and victory." The woman shouted as she threw off her cloak, revealing a brilliant pink light. "Brienne! Brienne! Ribrian!" Chapter 259, Love Boat. Let us blossom. Let us sing the song of love and victory, shouted Ribrian as threw off her cloak, revealing a blinding pink light. "Brienne! Brienne! Ribrian! What the hell is she doing?" Yo-Yo shouted as she shielded her eyes from the light. "She's transforming," Pei explained, also covering her eyes. "Like hell she is." Kaza shouted, before opening her mouth, charging up a blast, and firing a beam of fire at the center of the light. Kaboom! The beam hit, causing an explosion, smoke, and dust rising up, and obscuring Ribrian from sight. You think that got her?" Yo-Yo asked hopefully. "Well, that was rude," came Ribrian's voice from the smoke. "Not a chance in hell," Kaza growled. The smoke cleared, and it revealed Ribrian, transformed and unharmed. She was an extremely, almost comically fat woman, with a body wider than a barrel, and arms and legs as thick as watermelons, that jiggled every time she moved. She wore a strange sleeveless red and green dress, with matching red pants and green boots. Her dress also had a weird hood that wrapped around her pudgy face and had a weird antenna sticking out of it. Did she just take no damage from that?" Yo-Yo pointed out. And also, did she just get fat? Her quirk is called the power of love, La Brava explained. She can absorb love and turn it into power. That fat is actually love, that she uses to protect her body like armor. She stole the idea from Fat Gum. It's almost impossible to get through. Maiden's charge! Ribrian shouted, before curling up into a ball, and rolling in place for a few seconds, building up speed, before charging at them. Gently rebound! Gentle shouted as he made the air in front of him elastic and jumped back a bit. Ribrian rammed right into the elastic air, slowing her down to a near stop, as she slowly stretched through the air, before ripping through it entirely. What? Ack! Gentle shouted before Ribrian rammed into him, sending him flying into the side of the ship, blood flying out of his mouth. Gentle! La Brava screamed out, tears running down her face. Humph! Ribran jumped up and stopped being a ball, before turning towards the pirates and making a heart with her hand. Pretty cannon! Pink energy gathered inside her hands before launching out a heart-shaped energy blast right at the pirates. Kaza shot a fireball at it, but the energy just barreled through it right at them. Everyone jumped out of the way, barely dodging it in time and letting the blast fly past them, up into the sky, before exploding in the air. Shit, she's not fucking around. Yo-Yo shouted. Shift. Support me. Pei sends everything at her. Lilith, go get that. Kaza ordered. And Roru. Ready the cannons. Rest of you on general support. Look for an opportunity, and make sure that gets to me. With orders given, Kaza launched herself at Ribran, attempting to grab her, only for Ribrian to bat her hand away, before landing a devastating punch on the side of her face, sending her flying to the left. Gah! Kaza tumbled across the ground, before using her claws to slow and eventually stop herself. Fuck! She rubbed the side of her face, which still stung from Ribrian's punch. Damn, she hits hard. Pretty cannon! Ribrian shouted as she shot another heart at Kaza. Kaza flew up, avoiding the blast. Humph! Pretty love machine gun! Ribrian shouted, as suddenly a bunch of smaller energy hearts at her. Kaza flew around, trying to dodge them until one of them hit her in the wing, stopping her, and allowing her to get bombarded by the rest of the hearts, which exploded along her body creating small bruises and burns with each hit, as she fell to the ground. With her opponent grounded, Ribrian charged up a more powerful attack. Pretty ca-. Enough! Ribrian stopped her attack when she heard her cousin shout. She turned to the left and saw La Brava standing there, tears in her eyes, looking absolutely furious. Just stop! La Brava shouted at her. Are you trying to kill everyone here? Ribrian scoffed. Minami, these cretins won't die from this. Stop exaggerating. And now that we're talking. What on earth were you thinking? Hacking into the Midoriya Foundation. Causing a worldwide panic. Do you know how many people you've killed? Do you know how many people would have died if I didn't do that? La Brava argued. Politicians would have kicked the can on the Midoriya's cure for years. Trying to get some kind of advantage and keep him from getting too much power. Disease would have killed millions in that time. But I stopped that. By getting the public mad and applying pressure on the government before they could spew any lies to sate them, we got that cure for people in need all around the world. I didn't think about it that way. Ribrian actually stopped for a moment, considering La Brava's words, before skating her head and putting her determined look back on. Be that as it may, I won't allow my cousin to go around gallivanting with villains. Why? Because it'll hurt your reputation. La Brava spat. Oh please Minami, I'm so beloved in France that nothing you do could harm my sparkling reputation. Ribrian boasted, before getting serious again. I'm doing this because I'm worried about your safety. These people are criminals. They won't hesitate to kill you if you get in their way. Do you really believe that? Gentle would never hurt a fly if he didn't have to. La Brava argued. And the sky pirates have never killed anyone. Most of them were vigilantes before they became pirates. Well, excuse me if I don't trust the integrity of criminals I've never met. Ribrian shouted back. And even if that were true, there's still the most important threat to your safety. The Midoriya Foundation. You hacked them and then teamed up with the sky pirates, who stole his ship and attacked them regularly. Izuku Midoriya is the most powerful man on the planet, and eventually, he will find you and your friends, and you will get taken in. And when that happens, it won't be pretty. But if I take you down, then maybe I can use my influence to at least save you. Brienne. La Brava softened for a second and sighed. As much as she'd love to simply tell her that she was working for the guy, she couldn't. Lest she actually make an enemy of the most influential man on the planet. Be that as it may, I still stand by my decisions. I think I did the right thing. And even if I did, I'd never leave Gentle's side. Ribrian scowled. Do you really love that man? True, he dresses rather well and keeps himself well-groomed, but he's still a villain. La Brava smiled. That's right. And he stole my heart. Krakum. Suddenly Ribrian was bombarded by the cannons of the Cloud Splitter, which had been getting ready while La Brava and her had been taking. Kaboom! 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 The cannons fired again and again, down on Ribrian's location, creating a massive cloud of smoke and shaking the earth with each shot. After a while longer, the cannons stopped. They were red hot, which meant they couldn't fire anymore due to overheating. For a moment there was silence, as the massive cloud of smoke and rubble around where Ribrian was standing started to settle. Max Love Cannon. Kaboom! Suddenly a massive heart burst out of the smoke, and smashed into one of the cannons, causing it to explode. The smoke cleared, revealing Ribrian mostly unharmed. The only sign that she'd been attacked at all was her burned and torn up clothing. Max Love! Ribrian shouted as she charged up another attack. Cannon! Kaboom! Another cannon was destroyed. Meanwhile, back with Kaza, Yo-Yo ran up to her, while Ribrian was distracted destroying the cannons. Hey, present from Lilith, Yo-Yo said, handing the captain a mite fruit. That Izuku had given them just in case. Kaza took the fruit and stood up. Roro, can the ship still fly? The cannons on the right side are destroyed, but the flight systems are still fully operational, Roro said over comms. Good. Where the hell are Pei's monsters? Kaza shouted. Waiting for the right time. I plan to attack once she's done with the cannons. Pei said using the comms. All right. Everyone. Get on the ship. Me and Pei's monsters will hold her off, while you guys run. Kaza explained. Wait. But what about you? Yo-Yo asked. Best case scenario, I manage to get away and meet up with you all later, Kaza said. And worst case scenario, I get captured. Whoa, you sure about that, boss? Yo-Yo asked, her eyes widened with both shock and respect. I took up the title of captain, meaning I have to take up the responsibility as well, Kaza explained as she looked down at the fruit. And this is the only way I see us getting out of this. With that, Kaza ate the fruit, quickly devouring it down to its core, before throwing that aside. Raga! Kaza roared, as she felt power surge through her veins. Go! Kaboom! Meanwhile, Ribrian finished destroying the final cannon and stopped her assault, as she started desperately searching around the smoke. Manami! Manami! I'm right here. La Brava walked out of the smoke, completely unharmed, much to Ribrian's shock. I told you, they wouldn't hurt me. Shift used his quirk on me to make sure I wasn't harmed while the cannons were hitting you. I see, a clever trap, Ribrian smirked. But it won't work on me. That's fine. You get distracted very easily. La Brava said. Rah! Suddenly, hundreds of monsters that all looked like sea life combined with birds rushed off of the ship and went straight at Ribrian. TCH. Pretty love machine gun. Ribrian shot out dozens of hearts with rapid fire. That slammed into the monsters, destroying dozens of them each, and holding back the horde. Meanwhile, Gentle came in and grabbed La Brava before bouncing away back towards the ship. What are we going to do now? La Brava asked once they were back on the ship. The captain is going to hold her off while we retreat, Gentle said, looking extremely remorsefully. She's simply too strong. La Brava frowned and leaned into Gentle to comfort him, knowing that, even if they weren't close, leaving an ally behind was hard for him. I know. Meanwhile, Ribrian had finished turning the entire horde back into paint and looked up at the ship. They went back to that ship. Are they trying to retreat? Ha! As if I would let th dash. Suddenly she was interrupted by Kaza rushing her from the side, grabbing her head, forcing her down, and dragging the side of her head through the dirt as she flew. She's flying faster? Ribrian noted, before punching Kaza in the face, and then spinning them around, reversing their position. Slamming Kaza in the dirt with Ribrian on top of her. Slam! 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 Ribrian punched Kaza repeatedly, the first punch creating a crater around them, and each punch after that made it deeper and wider. She cocked back her fist, charging it with even more energy for one final punch, when suddenly, Kaza shot her in the face, with an intense beam of blue flames. Ack! Ribrian shouted out in shock, as she quickly used one of her arms to cover her face. These flames are far more intense than last time. She definitely increased her power somehow. Shink! While Ribrian was distracted by her fire, Kaza sneakily stabbed her in the back with her tail. Unfortunately, all it hit was Ribrian's fake fat, doing no real damage to her. Kaza took out her tail, but Ribrian grabbed it, and then jumped up, back-flipping and lifting Kaza into the air with her, before landing and slamming her down into the ground, hard. Ack! Kaza felt the wind get knocked out of her, leaving her stunned, and Ribrian didn't let up. Slam! 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 Ribrian slammed Kaza into the ground again and again, using her tail to throw her around like a flail. Then, Ribrian, still holding her tail, started spinning in place. Faster, faster, and faster, until the two of them were a blur. Lovely! Cyclone! Ribrian shouted, before using the momentum, to toss Kaza aside, far, far away. With Kaza temporarily taken care of, Ribrian turned her attention back to the ship, which was starting up, and moving above the ground, slowly rising into the air. No! Ribrian shouted, before pouring powder into her legs and jumping at the ship. Back on the ship, Rora was in the steering room, looking at the machines, and saw Ribrian coming at them fast. Activating shields and cloaking. The shields activated, making the ship invisible, and Ribrian smacked against the shields, bouncing off of them like a ball. Back on the deck, Yo-Yo and Ruff breathed a sigh of relief, seeing Ribrian get bounced off their shields. Hey, we good? Yo-Yo asked through the comms. Yeah, we should be. Our altitude is steadily increasing, we should be out of her range soon, Roru said. Huh, oh shit. Suddenly, everyone could see a brilliant pink glow, rising up from the ground. The hell is that? Lilith asked. La Brava's eyes widened. Oh no. Suddenly, they saw Ribrian's face rise up, but now it was the size of a building, rising up as she grew larger and larger until she towered over them. A massive Ribrian, the size of a skyscraper, looking down on them. Super Ribrian, La Brava explained. Smash! Ribrian smashed her fist into the barrier, breaking it apart and causing the whole ship to shake. Shit, our shields are done. We can't take another hit like that, Roru shouted over comms. It'll take a while for them to come back online. Do not let Ribrian hit us again. I repeat. Do not let Ribrian hit us again. La brava. Give me your strength. Gentle said, knowing what he had to do. La Brava nodded, and activated her quirk, covering Gentle in a pink glow. RAHH. Ruff took all the barrels of sand that were on deck and burst them open, sending the sand up at Ribrian's face. Gah! How rude! Ribrian cried as she swatted at the sand to no avail, before eventually getting her focus back, and raising her fist to punch the ship once again. Gentilly! Gentle jumped up at Ribrian, this time activating his quirk to the max, using all of his and La Brava's power, to create massive walls and multiple layers of elasticity. Rebound! Ribrian punched the elastic air, her fist going through it, but the air just barely managed to hold it back, before it could reach the ship. Damn it! The ship kept rising up and was now at Ribrian's head, and the hero knew she had to take this ship down now. She used her other hand to try and grab the ship, but suddenly, Kaza flew in from the side, having charged up her mouth blast to the max, and fired a beam of pure white fire at her arm. Cutting it off. Growling. You again! Ribrian glared at Kaza, as the arm of her giant avatar grew back. Love song! Ribrian opened her mouth and a giant pink beam flew out of her mouth, headed right at Kaza. Kaza could only look at the beam and know this was it. It was too fast and too big to dodge, and there was no way she'd be able to keep fighting after getting hit by that. You guys better get away. Kaza thought. And then the beam hit. Crackacoom. The beam burst on impact, creating a massive explosion where Kaza had been flying. And from the smoke of that explosion, Kaza's broken, burnt, and battered body fell towards the ground. Before she could fall too far, however, Ribrian rushed forward and caught her in her giant palms. Safe altitude reached. Shields are ready. Activating thrusters. Go! Roru shouted. The shield's thrusters turned on, causing the ship to rocket away, and as the shield turned on, allowing them to vanish completely. Ribrian looked at the spot where the ship had vanished, with a scowl on her face, before looking down at Kaza in her hand. So you sacrificed yourself so your friends could get away. How noble. Perhaps you pirates are so loveless after all. Although I still won't relinquish my cousin to you. With that, Ribrian kneeled down, gently setting the heavily injured captain down on the ground, before dispelling her giant energy avatar, revealing the real Ribrian which had been hidden in its chest. Once Ribrian landed, her body glowed, and the fake fat dissipated, revealing her true form. A fairly slim and attractive young woman, with long blonde hair. First I'll need to call an ambulance, then a tailor, Ribrian said, looking down at her tattered and burnt-up dress. Credit where credit is due, those villains were the toughest foes I've faced in a while. This will prove to be a challenge if they keep running a dash. And then Ribrian felt something hit the back of her head hard. And everything went black. Slam! Damn it! Yo-Yo shouted as she punched the side of the ship in frustration. Getting away from Ribrian had come as a massive relief to everyone on board the ship, but after that, they all had to take in that Kaza had in fact sacrificed herself to ensure their escape. Wow, to think that woman would actually let herself get taken down for our sake, Lilith said. Despite her attitude, she always took her job very seriously. Shift added. It's what made me respect her. So what now? Pei asked the rest of the crew. We need to rescue her. Gentle proposed, before falling to one knee, and clutching his chest, some more blood leaking out of his mouth. Gentle! La Brava cried, running up to try and support the man as best she could. TCH. Much as I hate to say it, we're in no shape to fight, and even if we couldn't beat her anyway. Yo-Yo spat, before activating her comms. Hey, Brains! You have any idea how to rescue the captain? Unfortunately, no. Roru sighed. As much fun as that would be to plan, we don't really need to worry about that. Lowering shields. Ha! Yo-Yo and everyone else looked confused, as the shields lowered for a second, only for Gamma 2 to fly onto the deck of the ship, holding the unconscious and heavily injured body of Kaza. "Sup?" Gamma 2 greeted. "Captain." Yo-Yo cried out joyfully. "You got her." She is alive, right?" Lilith asked, looking at the poor state the captain was in. "Yeah, but she's gonna need some medical attention, and a long time to recuperate. At least if we don't use Midoriya tech," Gamma 2 explained. "How did you get her away from Brienne?" La Brava asked, happy but very confused. "Oh, that was easy. Once the fight was over and she powered down, Gamma 1 just sneaked up behind her and gave her a quick boink on the noggin," Gamma 2 told them. "Not the most heroic way to go about it, but it's definitely the most efficient. Let's get her to the med bay," Yo-Yo shouted. "Don't worry, Captain. We're gonna get you patched up." Chapter 260, Army Rundown. With the completion of the project, the first iteration of the Midoriya Foundation Private Army has been founded. Troops. Numbering at 1.5 million troops and rising, the Midoriya Foundation Private Army consists of 42% human troops and 58% androids. The androids assigned to standard roles inside the army are new standard combat model androids. Designed to be noticeably stronger than the standard villain, but also cheap and efficient to mass produce. The troop number also does not count non-sentient androids and robots, which the Midoriya Foundation has plenty of, both for combat and non-combat purposes. Armor. Produced by Project Dress Up, the Midoriya Foundation armor comes in 4 variations. The first is the standard armor. Full body armor that provides protection from concussive force, extreme heat, extreme cold, and bladed weapons. The armor is tough enough to get hit by a bus and not crack, and the internal shock absorbers would keep the wearer from experiencing any harm. The visors in the helmet are also equipped with infrared sensors and health scanners, made to detect targets and judge the health of allies and civilians. The next armor is the flight armor. This armor has everything the standard armor has, and more. Its most notable feature is a jetpack located on the back of it, allowing the users to fly with ease, provided they've been trained to use it. The suit itself is augmented to be able to take falls better than the standard suit, although it is also equipped with an emergency parachute in case of jetpack failure. Lastly, the visor of this suit is built with telescopic vision mode, allowing the user to see things from much farther away. Next, we have the aquatic armor. A far bulkier armor that will allow personnel to operate in the deep sea. It carries enough oxygen to last 2 days, can withstand tremendous amounts of water pressure, and can withstand greater amounts of cold and heat than the standard armor. It's also equipped with night vision and emergency lights, so it can operate in the dark. Mechanized parts are located in the arms and legs, to allow the users to still freely move in the heavy armor. Lastly, it has jets built in across the armor, to allow them to move freely through the water. The current final armor is heavy armor. Similar in stature to the aquatic armor, the heavy armor is even larger and heavier. More like a tank with legs than armor. The heavy armor can withstand far greater punishment than any other armor, outperforming any actual tanks in terms of endurance. Of course, much like the aquatic armor, this armor contains mechanical parts to allow the user to move. But in addition to that, they greatly increase the strength of the suit itself, allowing them to lift cars over their heads with ease, as well as allowing them to use heavy weaponry. Of course, all this comes at the cost of their mobility. They are extremely slow and aren't even able to jump. They have jet boosters in their boots, but this is basically just a tool to allow them to move past ledges, so they aren't stopped in their tracks by a knee-high incline. The last notable thing about this armor are the shock gauntlets, made for hand-to-hand combat in case their other weapons are unavailable. Weapons. Here we will only be discussing only notable weapons, as the Midoriya Foundation does have access and uses pretty much every conventional weapon in existence. To save time, only certain ones need to be talked about in detail. The first weapon is the MFD Chaos Rifle. Using the raw power of fractals, these rifles can shoot energy shots capable of tearing through brick. And thankfully it's light enough to be used by any Midoriya Foundation personnel, and can even be used underwater. As such, this is the standard weapon used by Midoriya Foundation troops. Next is the MFD Heavy Chaos Rifle. These rifles are a more powerful version of the standard Chaos Rifle. These ones can tear through a building at full charge. However, with the increase in power came a significant increase in weight and size. As such, only those donning heavy armor are authorized to use these. After that, we have the MFD swords. These swords are made out of a special cactus metal/titanium alloy and use fractal power to vibrate, increasing its cutting power significantly, allowing it to cleave through light steel plating. Moving on to the MFD Heavy Thunder Spears. These spears are made from the same alloy as the swords, however, they serve a very different purpose. The spear, on top of being used like a spear, is capable of shooting out neuroshocks, non-lethal beams of energy that paralyze targets when hit. However, the real reason for their name comes from when they're thrown. Once they're thrown, the spears will deploy a rocket from their back and thrust towards their targets at speeds close to Mach 1. And once they pierce the target, they explode, with significant power. The MFD rocket hammer and rocket axe are exactly what they sound like. Massive hammers and axes, with rockets on the back of them. At full power, both of them are capable of destroying a heavily armored tank. MFD Unstable Broken Fractal Launcher. This is a missile launcher that shoots very special missiles. These missiles are actual cases, and inside them are cracked fractals. Once the missile hits something, it will quickly deliver an energy pulse into the fractal, causing it to explode. While the explosion is strong, its power isn't the focus point, as anything caught by the explosion will be subject to the effect of that fractal's quirk, be it making them fall asleep, setting them on fire, weakening their power, etc. Vehicles. Much like with weapons, the Midoriya Foundation has access to all forms of vehicles, so we'll only be going over noteworthy ones. The MFD Storm-class ships are massive airships, the same model as the Typhoon, capable of housing tens of thousands of troops. It has dozens of onboard chaos energy cannons capable of leveling buildings, a force field that protects it from most attacks, and its hull is strong enough to withstand severe punishment as well. It can travel faster than trains, and it possesses a cloud camouflage feature so it can move without noticing it. Lastly, it poses a large railgun, capable of shooting straight through a mountain. Meanwhile, MFD Wind-class ships are similar to the one that was stolen by the Sky Pirates, but without the pirate motif. MFD Wing-class ships are one-person ships, the ones primarily meant to be used during combat. They're equipped with two high-powered chaos cannons and can fly at speeds up to Mach 5. It can reduce an entire city block into rubble in less than a second. MFD tanks are heavily armored tanks, armed with standard machine guns, and one large chaos cannon. They are also equipped with a force field fractal. The MFD Juggernaut tanks are even more heavily armored and are equipped with even more weapons. The main cannon is now EX Chaos Cannon, something that no human being is currently able to get hit by and walk away unscathed. The MFD Pursuer is a motorcycle, designed for speed and agility. On top of being able to move faster than bullet trains, it can also drive on walls, jump, and is equipped with a built-in two-way grappling hook system. And so that is the brunt of it, Izuku explained. Currently, Izuku was in his office, speaking to his two new generals. The first one looked very similar to Sai, but with lighter, longer hair, styled into a long braid. This was one of Sai's sisters, Keita Biura. She had been working as a pro hero for the longest time in France, but due to her abrasive personality, and being compared to another one of her sisters who was also in France, she was never super popular. After having had enough of her sister, she decided to move back to Japan and was hired by Izuku. Because despite her lack of popularity, she was very effective at her job and at commanding others. The other one was another blonde girl, but not related to Sai, and much smaller. One would assume she was a child at first glance, and they would be mistaken. As this was actually a fully grown man, Gehaltmann. Formerly a rising star of the German military, it seemed like he got on the bad side of someone there, and one day he found himself in the body of a small girl. And was promptly dismissed afterward. Which is when Izuku came in, and swooped her up. Although curiously, they were unable to turn him back to normal. Even with Ares' power. Implying that a powerful reality warping quirk was used. Both of them were wearing green military uniforms, with red boots. The primary colors of his army. The two of them were looking over the files Izuku had given them, detailing the army they'd be working with. Of course, there's more you have access to, and more is being developed. I've sent this information to your phones, so you can look at it later. Izuku explained. Keita smirked as she looked down at the papers. Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. For once I'm glad I'm not an only child. So what's our directives? Gehalt asked, looking up at Izuku with a very serious expression. Izuku pulled out a holodisc, and it showed Sin Shinran. First priority is Sin Shinran. He's one of the 7 shadow dragons we accidentally created. While all the shadow dragons are an issue, currently he is proving to be the most problematic. His ability to manipulate negative emotional energy, to not just manipulate people's minds, but argue their power, has caused several more villains to pop up, as well as villainous organizations to grow stronger and more aggressive. And his abilities when it comes to direct combat are no laughing matter either. Immediately after he was born, he was able to hold off Gamma 2. Not for very long, but doing that for any length of time, and then escaping afterward is impressive, to say the least. If you encounter him, do not let him escape, but don't engage him with troops either. Defer this to the heroes and just keep him contained, and be ready to retrieve his Dragon Ball if need be. Next, the hollow disc projected more images. Showing Sin, Haze, Oceana, and a new one, alongside 3 shadowy figures. This new figure appeared mostly humanoid, with a blue, icy exoskeleton and large dragon-like wings coming from his back. And there, in his neck, just barely visible under his suit, was the 3-star Dragon Ball. Second priority would be the rest of the shadow dragons. Haze Shinran, the frog-looking one, has already been captured, and is being detained at Angel Island. Osanana is non-hostile and is working with us. And EIS is currently the CEO of Blizzard. No, I don't know how that happened. And while he isn't hostile, well, let's just say he's not improving the company. But the real focus, aside from Sin whom we've discussed, are the remaining 3 dragons. You are to deduce if they're hostile. If not, make contact and ask them to come into questioning. If yes, neutralize them, and bring back the Dragon Ball. Only destroy the Dragon Ball, if you absolutely must. Next, the image changed to show Ri, Destro and Karai. Third priority is tracking down the Foot Clan and the Meta Liberation Army. Specifically, I'd like to find their main bases, so we can crush them properly. Izuku continued. Although my spying and information gathering department is still in the works, so that might have to wait. Still, these 2 organizations present a threat to me and my children. As such, anytime you find them or their operations, they are to be taken care of, swiftly and immediately. Take them in alive if possible. And if you encounter any children under their control, they are to be taken alive, period. Under no circumstances are you to kill any children, ever. Then the image changed, to show crowds of rioting people. Lastly, is general peacekeeping. The Japanese government has graciously allowed us full reign and authority over peacekeeping operations in the country. And so you're to help the heroes and police when it comes to making sure the streets stay peaceful. Izuku said. To add to that, the American government has also given us the thumbs up to operate in their country, but to a much more limited extent. Man, I'm taking you with operations there, please try to calm things down. Yes, sir. Gehalt said with a salute. Is that all, sir? Not quite, Izuku said, as the holodisc showed one last image. This time of Cooler. This is the villain known as Cooler. He is currently in possession of an extremely powerful thing known as a Chaos Emerald. He's not on the list of priorities simply because he's no longer in the country, and we can't assume he's in America either. However, if you see him, or think he may be nearby, he becomes the top priority. That being said, do not engage him if he's utilizing the Chaos Emerald. Make sure he doesn't escape, and call for backup immediately. And evacuate the area. If he's in America, you have full authorization to use whatever means necessary to do this. Even if the American government opposes it. Won't that land you in some hot water? Keita asked, raising an eyebrow. A slap on the wrist maybe. Izuku shrugged. At the end of the day, with the amount of power and influence I'm wielding, and the absolute disaster state America is in, we can really do whatever we want. The only reason we're complying with them at all is so the rest of the governments don't get hesitant about allowing me to work in their countries. And also to fight the narrative that I'm trying to take over the world. You're not? Keita and Gihalt asked at the same time, looking at Izuku in surprise. No. Why would I want to take over the world? Izuku groaned, sounding absolutely exasperated. I just want to have enough power and influence over the entire planet to do as I wish, for the sake of others. Okay, when I say this out loud, I get where you're coming from. But you get my point. I would just like to benefit humanity from the side. Not as some kind of super emperor of humanity. Understood? Yes, sir. Both of them said. Chapter 261, Mother. Ta-da! Shiroko stepped back and looked back up at her work. She, Shina, and Kano had decided to spend today with Izuku, giving him a new wardrobe. Currently, Izuku was dressed in black dress pants, with a black dress sleeveless vest and a white undershirt underneath it. He also wore a pair of snazzy black shoes, black gloves, and a tie. This looks really good, girls. Izuku said as he looked at himself in the mirror. Maybe I should wear stuff like this more often. Once again, our work is nothing but top-notch. Kano boasted proudly. Makes me wish there was a mother figure to work on. Suddenly, an idea popped up in Shiroku's head. Oh yes, I'd love to have a mother to dress up and do makeup on. That would be the best. Shina thought about it. Sure, she'd done a bit of makeup for Izuku, but with a mother, she'd be able to do so much more. Maybe they could even dress up as idols and sing together. The thought made her smile. Yeah, that'd be great. Izuku frowned, seeing his kids dissatisfied. A mother, huh? Shiroku smirked. That's right, now call Achiko. After all, who else would you ask to take the role of our mother? Actually, Izuku said, getting an idea of his own. I know a way we can do that. Huh? Shiroku looked at him confused. What do you mean? XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX So, what do you think? Standing before them was Izuku. But not the Izuku they were used to. Seeing as they wanted a mother to play with, Izuku came up with one conclusion. Just become a mom. Using the fractals, Izuku was easily able to change his gender whenever he pleased, and then change it back again. Although he didn't expect his female form to be such a departure from his male one. Their height barely changed, but their overall body structure was almost completely different. Far more curvy. What's more, they now sported a long head of curly green hair, which framed a rather cute face. Although the most notable change was very obviously their chest, as their now female body sported a very generously sized pair of breasts. Figures mom and dad's genes favored girls, Izuku thought with a sigh. Although Izuku was definitely more conventionally attractive this way, it did come with the downside of them being very uncomfortable. Particularly in the chest area. Seriously, how do women walk around with these? And why would they want them to be so big? Meanwhile, the girls were just trying to process what they were looking for. Kano and Sheena were the first to recover, huge smiles crawling up their faces. "Wow, you look amazing, Mr. Midoriya," Sheena said, already thinking of what makeup to use. "Oh, what lovely hair, I have to say you wear it far better in this form than your natural one," Kano said excitedly. "Shiruku, let's get out some of our dresses and start resizing them. We can't let this opportunity go." "Yeah, sure, let's go." Shiruko shrugged. This hadn't gone at all like she thought, but screw it, this would still be fun. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Shiroku, sorry to bother you, dear sister, but my dress was to dash. Immediately Kiba froze, when she saw what the other three girls had just finished working on. Oh, Kiba. Perfect. What do you think of our work? Kano asked. Kiba saw in front of her, the female form of her father, now all dolled up by his three daughters. The main draw was the long red dress, with two slits down the side that exposed her legs. Thankfully he'd been spared the torture of heels, although the red shoes he had been forced to wear were still rather uncomfortable. Their face had been dolled up a bit, making it seem brighter, as well as adding crimson red lipstick to their lips. Lastly, their hair had been brushed and styled into sparkling emerald locks. Ah, ha! Was all Kiba could say, her brain struggling to process what she was seeing. Is that a good stunned silence or a bad stunned silence? Sheena asked as she tried to interpret Kiba's reaction. I think she's more confused than anything, Shiroku said. Caretaker, what is this? Kiba eventually managed to articulate. Well, the girls wanted a mom to play with, so I decided to do this, Izuku explained. Of course you did. Kiba deadpanned. That's such a you thing to do, caretaker. Although I must admit you do look very lovely. Not that you didn't look wonderful as a man, it's just your choice of clothes never did you any favors. I'm aware. Izuku chuckled. Well, I'll be back later when you're done. Kiba turned around to leave, but suddenly Izuku scooped her up and brought her into a hug. Huh? Sorry, I wanted to see what hugging you would be like this, Izuku said, holding Kiba against their chest. It's pretty strange. It feels like I'm being hugged by a pillow. Kiba thought, her face bright red. She didn't hate it, but man was it strange. She wanted to voice an objection, but also she didn't. Alright, I'll let you go now, Izuku said, putting the now once again stunned and confused Kiba down. Alright. Kiba nodded as she stumbled out of the room. Have fun. Kiba left the room, closing the door behind her. So that's what hugging a mom is like. Maybe I should spend more time with Achiko. I am really getting a better understanding of the suffering women have to go through on a regular basis, Izuku said as he looked at their new outfit in the mirror. This was the idol outfit Sheena was so excited about. A green and red dress, with a very frilly skirt, that was a bit too short for comfort. A pair of black stockings, red platform shoes, and a hood with bunny ears on it. You look adorable, Mr. Midoriya. Sheena gasped, her eyes sparkling. You'd be great on stage. Please God no. Izuku thought, thoroughly embarrassed. It had been a while since he'd been this red. Well, I mean I can't really dance or sing, so I doubt anyone would want to see that. Don't worry, I've got that covered, Sheena said. Then the door opened and Mina came in. Hey Sheena, you said you wanted me to help you with something. The moment Mina locked eyes on Izuku, she froze. Her brain took a few seconds to process this, and then a giant, shit-eating grin crawled up her face. Looking good, boss. Nice skirt. Izuku's face somehow turned redder. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX He was still in his female form but in far more comfortable and less exposing clothing. Basically, he was just wearing a female-fitted version of that suit and vest he'd worn earlier, with some added makeup. The dance practice had been equal parts embarrassing and hard, as Izuku had absolutely zero talent when it came to dancing. After that, the girls gave him this last outfit and then they were satisfied enough to let him go. Gotta say, boss, I wasn't expecting you to look this pretty as a girl, Mina praised. By the way, when are you gonna turn back? Is there a timer or do you have to touch one of those crystals again? The second one, Izuku explained, sounding very tired. I figured I'd stay like this for the rest of the day. The girls might get a bit sad if they see me immediately undoing their work. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, Mina said, before smiling. You're a good dad, you know. I don't think most people could go through all that just for their kids. I would though. Honestly, I'm a bit curious as to what I'd look like as a guy. Bet I'd be hot. You can try it if you want. Just ask the researchers and they'll let you use the fractal, Izuku said. Now hopefully I can go the rest of the day without something even more embarrassing happening. Knock knock knock. Mr. Midoriya, may I come in? Maria asked from the other side of the door. Izuku sighed. Come in. There was a small pause, likely because Maria was confused as to why his voice sounded so different, but when she came in, she looked at Izuku, did a double take, and then sighed. Sir, why are you a woman? I was playing with my daughters. What did you need, Ms. Maria? Izuku asked. I shouldn't even be surprised at this point. Ms. Uraraka has shown up and wants to see you. Maria sighed. Izuku groaned. I shouldn't even be surprised at this point. Let her in. Mina giggled. Ah, your luck is something I'll never get tired of, boss. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX some tea on the table between them. Achiko was currently staring at Izuku as he'd suddenly thrown 2 extra heads. Particularly her eyes would float down to the 2 head-size things on his chest. Meanwhile, Mina was smirking, standing behind Achiko. You know his eyes are a bit higher, right? Ah. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I swear I was just in shock. Achiko shouted, her face somehow redder than Izuku's. Trust me, it's taking a lot of restraint for me not to pay attention to them as well, Izuku admitted bashfully. I just hope none of the kids ask me to take this form again. Although if they do I could probably get used to it with time. You really will do anything for your kids, huh? Achiko said with a smile. Well, what else was I supposed to do? I couldn't just leave them wanting. Izuku mused with a frown. And it's not like I'm getting a spouse anytime soon. So if they want a mother, this is my only option. Achiko suddenly went into deep thought. Anytime soon. Does that mean he plans on getting a wife eventually? I mean, I guess that would be best for the kids. And it's not like it would be hard for him. There are plenty of girls who'd love to be his wife. Achiko suddenly felt a twinge of intense annoyance, bordering on anger. Was that just jealousy? Why would I be jealous? There's no reason. Nope. 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 Discontinuing this train of thought, Mina sighed and shook her head. Hey boss, mind if I speak with Achiko for a sec? Of course not. I'll just be in another room for a second. I need to make a call. Izuku said, getting up and walking towards his bedroom. I'll be back in a minute, tell me if you need more time. With that, Izuku left the room, leaving Mina and Achiko alone. Mina sighed and jumped over the couch, sitting next to Achiko. All right. Putting all the jokes and all the teasing aside, what do you want your relationship with Midori to be? I told you I just want us to be good friends. Achiko said, looking away for a second. Okay, so you wouldn't mind if Izuku started screwing some rando? Mina asked, raising an eyebrow. And there it was again, that twinge of intense emotion, so tangible it was almost like she got slapped, forcing a very ugly scowl on her face for a second before Achiko shook her head and tried to force her expression back into a neutral state. And you see right there, that was jealousy, it literally couldn't be any more obvious. Mina pointed out. You know what that feeling is. And there's really only one reason you could be feeling it. Unless you're really, weirdly invested in Midori's purity. Be honest with yourself for a second. Ugh. Fine. I'm like Izuku, in that way, just a bit. Achiko said, her face completely red. Happy? Not until you are, Mina said, giving her a serious look. So now we know how you feel. Next up. Why were you denying your feelings? Did you really think that keeping everything bottled up was a good idea? Because that makes things complicated. Achiko shouted out in frustration, more at herself than at Mina, clutching the sides of her head. Me and Izuku are too busy to worry about stuff like this. So you think Midori should take less time to enjoy life so he can work more? Mina asked sarcastically. What? No. That's not. Achiko tried to find a way to rephrase what she said, but couldn't. What she just said was pretty much that. And you're too busy? You come here to relax and play with the kids at least once a week. And at most, you just stay here for a week? Mina pointed out. Any of the time you spend with him could be a date, and it'd be less awkward because the two of you are skirting around your feelings. How do you even know he likes me like that, huh? Achiko argued, before looking down at herself. I mean, I'm not exactly the perfect girl. I've got all these scars, and my face is chubby, and I'm just not as good as the other girls. I mean, look at Momo. Heck. Look at Izuku right now. Okay, right now. Izuku's prettier than a lot of girls, which is hilarious, but beside the point. Mina snickered. Achiko, I could go on about how pretty you are. And I'm pretty sure Midori's the type of person to think scars are cool, so that's probably working in your favor. But none of that matters. Because do you really think Midoriya, I adopted a 40-foot Hydra and I love him dearly, Izuku is gonna care too much about appearances? I mean, come on. I know there are a lot of guys who say they care more about personality, but with Midoriya, I truly believe he could care less about what you look like. He likes you for you. You were the first person to accept him. Whenever he needs help or he gets hurt, or there's a problem with the kids, you come running as soon as you find out. The kids love you, and some of them are already calling you mom. That's why I'm so confident about Midori liking you. Achiko thought about that. She wanted to say that anyone would do that, but that's not really the case. It's not like Izuku's staff or even Mina herself didn't support Izuku, but not in the way she did. And the kids didn't call any other girl's mom. Let me tell you this. Midori's not gonna make the first move. Mina told her. He still hates himself too much. He wouldn't date any girl he likes because he doesn't think he's good enough. Or he thinks he's going to bother you. Or some other stupid reason. So if you want things to move forward, you gotta do it yourself. So, do you like spending time with Midori? Yeah. Achiko sheepishly admitted. Do you wish you could do that without having to hide any feelings or anything like that? Mina asked. Yes. Achiko's face continued to turn red, as she could see very clearly where this was going. Do you hate the idea of being closer to him? Mina continued. Do you hate the idea of making out, and cuddling, and actually being these kids' moms? Achiko thought about that, somehow her face turning even redder as she imagined a life like that. I don't hate it, I actually kinda like it. Then go for it. Mina encouraged her. We only live for so long, you know. Why waste your time with all the angst when you could just move on to the good parts? Look, I'm not asking you to confess right here right now, I just want you to seriously think about it, and not make up any nonsense excuses. Okay? When did you get this smart? Achiko pouted. What can I say? I'm a people person. Nina shrugged. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 49. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.